Welcome back, guys, to another episode of On Target TV. This morning we want to talk about something very important. We're going to talk about training, and since we're going to talk about training, I brought Aaron Cohen in from Sage Dynamics. He's one of the best trainers in the area, so we're going to give you a little bit of information about what you should be looking for and things like that with training.
Yeah, training's pretty important. Main reason being you don't know what you don't know. Reason that you take training is to learn new things, learn new techniques, and become proficient in those new techniques. And sometimes even more important, because there's a lot of stuff you can learn how to do on your own. You can just teach yourself how to do a lot of great stuff, but if you're doing something wrong or there's some inefficiencies in your training, a professional trainer is going to be able to identify those and help you see a different way to do it or a more efficient way to do it or correct the small mistakes that you may have worked into your own practice.
It's real easy to create bad habits, and if you don't have somebody there that can help you correct those things, then you're making those bad habits become permanent. So one of the things we like to talk about in training is just muscle memory. So doing something 100 times, drawing your gun, or if you've got a gun with a safety on it, making sure that when that gun comes out, the safety immediately comes off. It's like driving a stick shift. The more you do it, the more it becomes natural. So it's about that repetition. And certainly there's a process to go through with training. You want to start off with some good basic training, and then you can get into some of the more in-depth stuff. I mean, you can go all the way up to some SF type stuff. But
yeah, you go from what a lot of people consider the fundamentals to what some people consider advanced. My personal opinion, there's no such thing as advanced skill. There's just fundamentals applied to a new problem.
Right.
So if your fundamentals are highly proficient, then you should be able to use those in whatever context you get. One of the things I see with new shooters is they'll be really proficient in a static environment, what they're used to, or they spend a lot of their time practicing on a range. But when they have to shoot from an uncomfortable, even at something as small as just a different physical body position, their accuracy starts to suffer because they've never performed that task under those circumstances.
Right.
And that's something that you have to overcome. On the physiological side of it, motor learning is where the firearms industry got a lot of their buzzword numbers, like 3,000 to 5,000 reps or 500 reps. It takes around 300 to 500 repetitions to become unconsciously competent in an action, but it takes 3,000 to 5,000 to correct a bad habit.
Right.
So getting it right the first time is really going to be beneficial versus trying to overcome something you've been doing wrong or something you just haven't been doing as efficient as you should be.
Sure. Yeah, and so when you go from, like Aaron said, some of the first classes you'll take are really about fundamentals, sight picture, trigger control, things like that. When you get into some more of the advanced classes, or you're going to get into moving off the X, engaging multiple targets, like you said, some of the different positions and things like that. Because who knows, you may not just be standing there pointing the gun at a static target. You're going to want to find cover, concealment. Any type of movement you can make is going to make you a harder target to hit. So you get into some of those types of things, and then you get into some of the really advanced stuff, like some of the simunition training and force on force type stuff, and that stuff is very, very good because you're engaging a live human that is moving, that wants to shoot you back.
Yeah.
So you get into some of that type of stuff, and that can be really beneficial. And you offer a lot of those types of classes.
Yeah, and that to me, that's one of the biggest training gaps we have is live fire has a lot of artificialities built into it for safety. Like cardboard's always going to be cardboard.
Right.
You can only make things do, your training targets can only be so realistic. Even if they look like human beings or they're three-dimensional even, because I'm a big believer in three-dimensional targets, they're still cardboard.
Right.
So with force on force, you have to, if you have good role players are important, but if you have good role players and people understand their role in this scenario, then it forces the student to understand body language, to practice his verbal commands, to work on positioning, to work on creating a reactionary gap, and to react to real live human interaction, which is something that you just don't get from paper. I've had students who were highly proficient on paper, and then they come into a simunitions class and their accuracy suffers because it's the first time they've had to exercise their skills under that kind of a stress.
Well, yeah, you got somebody yelling at you and screaming, and they've got a brain too, so they're moving around.
It's not as simple as a beep, or it's not as simple as me yelling threat or me yelling gun or whatever my go phrase is. You're interacting with a role player who's going to take you on a psychological and emotional journey for the next 3 minutes of yelling and screaming at you.
Right.
And not giving you a chance to escape, but only towing the line of giving you the chance to actually use force. So you have to recognize at what time, if any, can I actually use my firearm? Because when it comes to self-defense, you have no right to self-defense in a situation that you create.
Right.
And Force on Force is great at teaching people that. You have to be the bigger person. You have to be willing to apologize. You have to be willing to try to find your way peacefully out of this situation. And if you can't, you need to be the most violent person in the fight.
Yeah, and so, we go back to the repetitions and things. When you do that 300 to 500 times, where you see really whether that's working or not is when we put you in that high stress situation.
Absolutely.
Because you get tunnel vision, all your fine motor skills go away, things like that. So, and that's the point by us putting you in that high stress situation, is to see how you're going to react when people are screaming at you and sim rounds are flying. And I mean, those things hurt. You really, I don't want to get hit by those things.
Pain's a good teacher.
Yeah. So, that's where we really see how a student is going to react when we get you in a really high stress situation. Like I said, the motor skills and tunnel vision is something that can be hard to overcome.
Yeah, and it's basically what you're looking for is stress inoculation. So can you get used to a certain type of physical or psychophysiological stress? The answer is yes. I mean, you look at the way they train fighter pilots. Those guys have to get used to stress. Eventually they do. They become very proficient at their skills regardless of how much stress they're encountering. Simunitions or Force on Force is no different. Once you become inoculated in stress, your ability to shoot or to perform or even to think under those conditions becomes greatly improved, and that's the whole goal of the training. That, and to give you an idea of, it's a skill validation thing. So you're coming to a class with all these inherent skills, whatever they are. All this stuff you did on your own or you got from other classes or things that you practiced to proficiency elsewhere. But do those skills apply to what we're about to do?
Right.
And some people find that their method for reloading the gun, their method for working the sight, their idea about sight picture, their in low light situations, their low light use, or their ability to give verbal commands using their outdoor voice, they find that some things just don't work. They worked great on paper, but they're not working here. So now they got to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit. So the sooner you get into a Force on Force class, the sooner you realize what you should really be focusing on. And again, there's a whole big category of things that we need to focus on at all times. And some things take a little bit more precedence than others when you realize this is how I perform under stress. And the greatest thing about Force on Force, if you're taking the class from someone, is it removes your ability to game it. When I shoot paper, I put it up. I give myself the par time. If I'm using a shot timer, I roughly know when it's about to go off.
Right.
I don't have to do any interaction. But when someone's running the scenario for you, you have no control over the situation other than what you're able to do verbally.
Yeah, and you get into those surprise situations. Typically when you're running a Force on Force class or something like that, you'll have a series of rooms and you may have people stashed in there, so you're going in blind basically.
Yeah.
You really don't know what's going on, and again, that gives us the chance to see how you're going to react. Absolutely. When you don't know what's coming. And that's, so these are the skills that we're trying to give to you guys for real world situations. Because if you come into your house and you realize, somebody's broken into my house, you don't know if they're still there or not. So now we're clearing rooms. So we're trying to give you real world skills for situations like that. I know you guys do some vehicle classes as well, which is a good thing. With a lot of entering autos and things like that we're seeing around. You need to know how to work a firearm in and out of your vehicle as well.
Absolutely. You need to be able to work a firearm inside the car, outside the car, and into another car.
Right.
The fact is, we all own cars, we all drive cars, or we all live in an environment where cars are going to be one of the most prevalent features, one of the most biggest terrain features, really, that you're going to encounter. So knowing how to use those to your advantage is huge. I mean, granted, the class is like, okay, it's really cool to shoot out of cars, and it is. It's a fun class to take, but what's more important is you're going to get really good ballistic information. You're going to learn to either...
Like shooting through glass.
Yeah, shooting through glass. I mean, that causes big issues, big deflection issues with your round based on what your chosen self-defense round is. But you also see how your round performs against the vehicle body, and then, when I do my class, I bring a whole slew of weapons out and show you how all these other firearms perform against the vehicle body, and it kills myths. I mean, that's one of the biggest takeaways my students constantly tell me about the vehicle class is, I thought this was different, or I thought this did this and it doesn't, or I had less faith in the vehicle than I now do. Or some guys are like, I really thought this round, like guys say it all the time, like a guy will bring out a 75 grain AR hunting round and it will not go completely through the vehicle. And he's like, I didn't think that was possible.
Right.
But then a guy brings out an AK shooting some cheap wolf ammo and it's punching through both doors, going clean through the vehicle. And he's like, what is this? And that's the thing, like you gotta get out and experience this stuff yourself. Never take someone's word for it, because hundreds of different types of vehicles, thousands of different vehicle types based on year and age and condition and everything
All
like
react
that. Like,
different.
yeah, like you have to go out and see it for yourself. And that's another big thing on training. And the internet has given some people the faith in the fact that, well, I can just watch some YouTube videos. You know, I put out YouTube videos. I make videos all the time, but I don't consider any video to be training.
Right.
Videos are practice supplements. So you can get a lot of great information from videos, but you can't actually engage with the person who made the video.
Right.
I can't, like, if someone's watching one of my videos on YouTube, they can't in real time, like, stop me and be like, hey, but what about this? Or can you expand on that? It just doesn't work that way. And that's another great thing about going to a class is if you have a question, just ask the instructor.
Right, right. And you know, that's what we're all here for is, you know, we've done this hours and hours and hours and hours. You know, so we want to make sure you guys are getting, you know, the right information. You're, you know, working on good habits and things like that. We offer classes here also. We've got anything from, you know, a basic handgun. We offer some ladies classes as well. If you just want to be in a class with just ladies, we've got some defensive pistol. We're actually working on building an area to do a force on force ammunition class. So be looking for that also. And then Aaron, of course, I said with Sage Dynamics, they do classes all over the place. They do a bunch in Atlanta. They've got them as far out as California. So, you know, y'all come check out one of our classes. We'd love to have you guys, and thanks for tuning in.